Hello, and welcome to day 13 of 31 days in a handmade journal. Today, we are having another creative departure and another day of making our own collage materials. And this is an example from my Soulfully Raw and Quirky journal, where these 3 strips is coffee dyed paper tile that I then stamped over. And this is a piece of vintage book paper that I punched holes out of and just glued it on. And so I'm going to teach you how to make coffee dyed paper towels, coffee dyed book text, as well as, this is another piece of that same coffee dyed paper towel that has been stamped on, as well as coffee dyed coffee filters, and how you get these kind of interesting light and dark marks here and around the edges and that sort of thing. So let's move this out of the way. Let's move this out of the way. So what I have here is coffee filters, a couple of paper towels, and some books that I already own, and these are books I'm not gonna read again. And they've been in my house for at least a decade. So I am okay with repurposing them. If you happen to be one of those people who get upset by the idea of repurposing books, I just want to let you know that libraries and bookstores throw away carts full of books on a regular basis. So at least these 3 books are not going to end up in the dumpster, at least no time soon. So what we need is things to dye. We need some coffee. I'm going to be using a foam brush, a foam brush for painting the coffee on with. You could use a regular brush. You could use makeup sponges. Any of those things will work. What am I missing? Paper clips. We will be using a few paper clips. So let's talk about coffee. If you are not a coffee drinker and you are a tea drinker, you can use tea for this process as well. You just want to you preferably want to use black tea and maybe 4 tea bags for 1 cup of water, because you want the tea to be really dark. For coffee, you can use instant coffee or brewed coffee. And again, you just want it to be really too dark to actually drink. So for coffee, for instant coffee, I would say 2 tablespoons to 1 cup of water. For brewed coffee, if you are the type of person who normally brews a whole pot of coffee, I would say set up your coffee maker as if you're going to brew a whole pot of coffee, and instead only put maybe a cup and a half of water in the reservoir and let that brew, that really potent coffee, let that brew. Put that in a separate container, like a glass jar that you can put a lid on, and then go back and refill your coffee maker with the proper amount of water and brew a whole pot the way you normally would. If you're concerned, you can add another half a teaspoon to the grinds to make sure you haven't weakened the coffee the way you want to drink it. So yeah, it's pretty simple. Like basically what we want is either tea or coffee that is too dark to drink. That's it, that's all we want. So let's sit that over there. I'm gonna put these over there. So normally when I dye papers, I usually get a big roasting pan, and I do a lot at one time, and I do this all in the kitchen sink. But it's a little difficult to get to film in that space. So we're gonna try not to make too much of a mess right here. So I have a smaller container with some paper towels in it. And the first technique I'm going to show is if you just want to if you have a newer book, like this book is already starting to get some brown edges naturally. And this book is from 2004. So it's already starting to brown naturally. Is this one? This one is too, a little teensy weensy bit. And this book, it shows up more on here. And this book is from 2007. And this book is also starting to brown naturally on the edges. And this book is from 1995. Look at there. See, I have lots of old books in my house. So let's start with this one. Let's say you just want the edges. And even if you wanted to do this with a newer book that is not already starting to brown, you can get the brown edges by, so I'm just going to stand this book up in this little plastic container. I'm going to take my brush with coffee and just brush it along the edges. And oops. This edge. And then we're going to riffle the pages a little so that moisture can move downwards. See, the edges are already getting wet. I'm going to hold it a little bit looser. And go along the outside edge some more. Oh, see how those edges are getting brown? Nice and brown now. And you could keep going. You could do this. Ruffle the pages a little bit. Let's do some this side. And now this book, we are just going to set it aside to dry. Another way that you could go about this is you could just tear out pages. That off screen just for a few minutes and just tear out pages. In the container. I like pages that have like some white space. Ooh, those are nice to work with. I'm just going to tear some pages out of this one. And notice that the text is just different in these two books. So that's nice. Not as, like I would like for them to be more different, but I'm going to just tear some pages out. And I like things like this, where there's like just a big number and some white space. That's enough for now. And I'm going to these up a little bit. I'm just adding some of the other pages in between so that they all get a mixture of dye. Lay that in there. And make puddles of coffee. And we're just going to lay another page on top and make puddles. Keep that. You want to be sure to get those edges, the edges of the paper. It's hard to see. I should have gotten something bigger, huh? So just getting those edges wet. And adding another layer. Oh, maybe I will use all this coffee after all. I didn't think I would. Okay, I'm out of coffee. So I actually already have more coffee brewed. So I'm just gonna go refill my cup. And I'm going to put it there. And I will be right back. So I have more coffee. And notice how that top page just kind of soaked up the coffee that was, but the moisture from the coffee that was below it. And that's awesome. That's what we want. So we're going to do a few more. It's a nice blank section. We like those. So we're going to add a paper towel to the mix because we want these to get dyed too. I'm just going to fold it in half so they'll fit in this container and lay it in there. Am I getting water? Not that I would mind, but I don't want to get the computer wet. So I'm just going to be a little mindful of that. Okay, now I'm going to show you some folding techniques so that you could get nice lines. So we're going to fold a piece of text in half. And maybe I'll fold it in half again, like this, short edge to short edge. And then I'm just going to make little triangles. See that triangle? Kind of like folding a flag, if you've ever folded a flag. Or if you've ever played flag football in school. Let's fold that down. And I'm going to out. And paper clip this together. And we're going to get this really, really wet with coffee. And the point of it is that the folds will act as a resist and create the lines. That's how you get these kind of dark sections in here, is by folding. And the lines become a resist. So start like that here. And I'm going to do another one. I'm going to fold this one lengthwise. And lengthwise again. And then I'm going to accordion fold it. So I'm going to go forward and back. Doesn't need to be precise, just forward and back. Forward, oops, forward and back. Now I have this little accordion fold. I'm going to put a paper clip on that. And put that in there. And we're going to get it all wet. Let's see. Okay, I have one more piece. I can show you another one. Let's see. Let's fold lengthwise but short ones. And then an accordion, so back and forth. Forwards and backwards. And forward. Now we have this little accordion fold, and we're going to try to roll this one this time. Instead of folding it, I'm going to try to roll it. It's not a precise art, at least not when I do it. This is not going to work with a paper clip. I need a rubber band for this.
So I have a bigger clip. I have this big clip. And I'm just gonna clip it like that. Had I been thinking, I'd have brought rubber bands as well, but I wasn't thinking, sorry. We're just gonna add water to the ends because we want it to seep it into those folds. That's a nice little puddle, isn't it? Let's do the other end. Clip the wet end, and stick the dry end in the puddle. We're gonna leave that there. And we're gonna do the same with our so let's just fold it in half. Fold it kind of in half again. And then make the accordion fold. Put a paper clip on it. I'm gonna sit that there for a moment. I think this is 3. And we're gonna, instead of folding this one, we're gonna roll it, kind of sort of roll it. And then kind of sort of fold it. Oh, it's like that. And I have another big clip over here. And again, a rubber band would be really handy for this bundle, but I did not bring any. So we're just gonna try to stick it on this clip, in this clip. Yeah, like that. And then with the last of our coffee, I'm just gonna dunk these two in the coffee and let them get wet that way. Maybe we'll dunk all of them in the coffee. That's not gonna work because it's not gonna get into the coffee. Okay, so these 3 that are in there, they're touching the bottom of the cup. And I am going to let this sit in this coffee for at least 4 hours so that we get more, some of these lines will come out darker. The longer it sits in the coffee, the darker it gets. So we're just gonna let these sit in there for about 4 hours. And these, let's see how our book is doing. Look at there. This will be a really faint coffee stain. So this, we're going to
kind of dump in there. Okay, maybe not. Pour that out. It's really wet. And we're gonna spread these out just a little bit so they can dry without turning moldy. We want the coffee to be stained, but we also want it to dry before mold starts to form. So in order for that to happen, we need to spread these out a little bit. This is the other reason why I usually do this in the sink. And even though I'm still layering them on top of each other, because I'm pulling them apart, there's air getting between the layers, thereby enabling drying them to dry. Napkin. I'm just gonna scrunch that up. Just that little guy. There's enough air between the various pieces, enough space between the various pieces for air to get in there so they can dry. And then in about 4 hours, when I check on, I'll check on this in about 4 hours. And I will also move these around, and I might even add more coffee drips to get some more of that in there. So that is coffee dyeing. Let me know if you have any questions or any concerns or anything of that sort. I will show off our coffee dyed paper when it is dry, as well as our coffee dyed book. I'm just gonna plop that there. Thanks for watching, and I will see you tomorrow with dried coffee dyed paper, and then we're going to use them in the journal. Have a great day. Bye.